Hi, Christian Bates here. I'm an osteopath and a naturopath, and I have been for 20 years, and I specialise in helping colicky, upset, crying babies. And I just want to go through with you a few of the most common reasons that the babies I see are upset. And I'm talking about babies that are really upset, and they don't need a change, they don't need a feed, and your sort of kind of natural instincts are telling you that they're upset for another reason. So I see babies that are colicky and windy, and these babies can be sort of grunty and noisy at night. They could be constipated, as in they not having a poo every day. They could have runny and watery poos as well. Then I see babies that are just generally crying, really upset, really unhappy. Some of these babies can't stand laying on their back at all. They can't be put down. You've always got to hold them and jiggle them around. And then I see a lot of babies that are having breastfeeding problems as well. And I'll go through the reasons for this and help you out with that. So let me show you some of the most common reasons why babies like this and how you can help them. There's no single sort of magic cure for an upset baby because there's so many reasons they can be upset. But once we know the reasons, then we can get the right help in place and make them much better. So this is an infographic that I've got of all the different reasons that babies are upset. So let's have a look firstly at the babies that are colicky, and it's obvious that they've got some sort of tummy problem. The most important thing to understand with babies that have tummy problems is that the gut bacteria plays a role in them being upset. So the gut flora, or the gut bacteria, is this good and bad bacteria that we have in our bowel, and most people know about this now. You can buy all sorts of yogurts with live bacteria in it. So basically we want to have lots of good bacteria in there and not much bad bacteria in there. And I'm going to go through this, and it's based on my 20 years of experience, but also on science. So I'm going to show you a few of the actual studies, and I know that some professionals watch some of my videos, so popping a couple of scientific references in there is quite nice. So colicky babies have been found that they have got more bad bacteria than less bacteria. So there's a definite imbalance in a colicky baby compared to a non-colicky baby. And what they also found is that not only was there more bad, there was less good, and sometimes they found that there was different balances of other bacteria as well. So their tummy bacteria just becomes imbalanced in some way. So this is another study here just showing that the different bacteria in the colicky infants, the bad bacteria was higher in colicky infants than non-colicky babies. So bad bacteria high, low good bacteria, or different varieties of bacteria equals having a crying and upset baby. So we can lay that as a foundation, but why does this happen? And there's actually, I did another one. There's actually six main reasons that your baby's gut bacteria is out of balance, and these are really common. Antibiotic use. This was the first one that I saw, and why I wrote the Calming Colic book, because I just picked up that so many babies were having antibiotics. Also, C-section, stressful delivery. If your baby's on formula, premature babies have lots of tummy problems because of this bacteria imbalance. And then I just added on there that even being born in hospital upsets your baby's gut bacteria balance, because hospitals have lots of different bacteria in them, and lots of other people are touching your baby and they're picking up these different bacteria. So let's have a look at antibiotic use first of all. Many mums have been told that if the baby gets the antibiotics, then yes, maybe they might have an upset tummy, but they're really told that if they get the antibiotics either during the delivery or whilst they're breastfeeding, then their baby's fine, and the antibiotics won't pass through to the babies. This is totally wrong. It definitely does. So there's some research that shows this. So here we have this one, that there's disturbances in the bacteria in newborns, and it happens after a premature birth if they've had caesarean section or if they've had antibiotics. And they highlighted in this study that even with antibiotics that are usually regarded as safe in adults, the babies were getting the side effects of antibiotics. A major side effect that I see of with babies that have had antibiotics is that they have lots and lots of poos. So they might go up to 10 poos a day, watery and runny, and maybe every nappy they has like a little poo in it. And of course they got an irritated, windy tummy. So that's an antibiotic baby, looks like that. And this one here, so this one's really interesting, that after the antibiotic treatment, the babies had only 10% of the bacteria that they thought they should have, and then it took a long time to grow back, and on there some were not established, so they didn't even grow back after it. So we have ways of helping those babies out, and I write extensively about this in the Calm and Colic book. So now we've got antibiotics causing this gut flora imbalance, which gives you a crying baby. So the delivery type. So it's well known, and again I'll show you a couple of research and studies, that the gut bacteria of a C-section baby is different to a baby that's born down and through the birth canal. So basically, these babies who have no bacteria, is thought that they have none or very little bacteria in them. As they pass through the birth canal, they pick up your bacteria, and that's where their gut bacteria comes from. But if they have a C-section, then these babies miss out on that, and in actual fact they then pick up the bacteria from the mother's skin. So C-section babies have a different or an upset gut bacteria balance. So now we have C-section babies, antibiotics, babies that have had antibiotics have a gut flora imbalance, which causes colic. Or windy babies, they're upset, they're crying, they've got a hard tummy, you don't know what to do with them. So colic, we're kind of generalising a little bit here as well. So interestingly, even stress in you or stress for your baby can cause this imbalance as well. And it's important to note that the stress in the mum can be measured in her breast milk, and then in the baby as well. So they all kind of correlate with each other, but that's been researched and proven as well. So a few studies here that that the gut bacteria of these new babies was altered if there was stress during the pregnancy. Now obviously all pregnancies are pretty stressful, but we're talking about ones where maybe there was some intervention. You know, it was a C-section, maybe it didn't go as according to plan, von twos, forceps deliveries, things like this. So here's another one again. These different stresses affected the baby's gut and the different bacteria. And this one's a really interesting one. This among breastfed babies, the higher the mum's cortisol level, which is the stress hormone, this was increased and in the baby as well, and the baby had a fear behaviour. So I put the mad scientist here from Back to the Future. So, I mean, what is fear behaviour in a baby? Basically, a baby that's crying and upset and colicky. So, if a mum was stressed, it passed on to the baby, and then that baby got stressed, fear behaviour, colicky, that kind of thing. So, another study showed that they matched the mum's stress levels matched, and then they altered if the baby was separated. So I put this tag team, it's WWF as it was then, tag team up on there. So basically, if you are feeling a bit stressed as a mum, and then I'm sure you've seen it before, you pass your baby to someone else who's not stressed, they calm right down. Come back to you, and then maybe they get upset. So they're picking up on the stress, but you could use that to your advantage and just have someone else help you and take your baby for a little bit of time, because then they pick up on their stress levels, which are lower. And this is another great study that showed that it's not just passed by breast milk. In fact, this stress is passed just by being around someone that's stressed. And they had this study where they had 2 lots of mums, and they stressed a lot of them out, and then the other ones they didn't stress out, and then they put them back in rooms with their babies, and the stressed mums' babies basically all started to cry because they just picked up on the stress from the mum. So now we're getting quite a few things that can cause your colicky baby to be even more colicky and upset. So antibiotics, C-section, stress, and that stress passes via the milk, or I just put via aura, just a bit of a silly thing to put, but it passes just by being around them. So maternal separation can also do it. So if after your delivery your baby had to be taken away from you for a bit of time, unfortunately, then they found that the bacteria in the baby was upset because of that. And remember, this upset bacteria causes colic. So, and this was an interesting one here. See this autonomic activity, that's the stress levels in the baby, 176% higher, and their sleep was 86% lower when there was maternal separation as opposed to skin-to-skin contact. So skin-to-skin contact, great for calming the baby, and also for them picking up the bacteria from you as well. And I just popped in here that formula doesn't have in it the good bacteria. So whereas breast milk will be passing on the bacteria, but it will pass on the bacteria from the mum. So the mum has to have good, healthy gut bacteria as well. So something else that I've seen is that if mums have IBS or some sort of bowel problem, then their babies could be a bit more colicky because they're not passing on quite so good gut bacteria. So you might want to take some good bacteria yourself. And that leads us on to probiotics, which is how we give good bacteria to babies or the mum. And we give it to the mum and she can breastfeed, and then it passes to the baby, and we can give some drops direct to the baby. And this is what I use very regularly in my practice. So just a few more studies showing that probiotics were more successful than using Infocal, and these breastfed infants benefited from taking probiotic drops. And another one here just proving that when the mum takes the probiotics, it does go into the breast milk and then pass on to the baby, and that is called a sort of vertical transference. And this other study shows that that actually happens too. So it's a really, really nice and simple way to help your baby using a specific baby probiotic. Now this slideshow is actually part of a slideshow from one that I gave to some student midwives, about 200 midwives at one of their annual conferences, and so I've just left this slide in because I thought it was really interesting for you, that if you had a C-section delivery, your breast milk actually has less protein content in it. So a little hint at maybe eating a bit more protein yourself to help your breast milk, especially if you've had a C-section. So let's have a look at some breastfeeding difficulties. Really common, babies with poor latch. Most babies tend to favour feeding off the mother's left side, and they struggle with the right side, and this can be really uncomfortable for the mum. You can be sore, your supply can come down because the feeding's not going so well, and then obviously you get really disappointed, very upset. You can feel a bit of a failure, unfortunately, if you're feeling there's a bit of pressure, and maybe you have to change the formula, which you're trying not to, and it's all a bit of an emotional time, and I see lots of babies and mums that are struggling with this. So let me show you the most common reason this happens. So have a look at this lovely little baby here. Look how this baby's arching Now, when you put this baby gets put down and lay on her back, and she doesn't like laying on her back, she automatically goes into this position. This is to do with how she was born. She had a long, fairly traumatic birth. She was back to back, so she's still in the shape that she came out of. And when you put her down, she goes like that. Excuse me. So you can see that this baby's turning so easily, or a long way into her mother's left side. But when her mum wants to feed her on the right side, she really struggles. She would have to use the underarm rugby ball hold. And by using that rugby ball hold, she'd probably be able to feed off her right side. But it's not the mum's fault, really. It's and I don't want to blame the baby, but the baby's in this very tight position and the baby can't get and feed well. So imagine how hard it is to position this baby to feed well. And that's all down to the traumas of the birth. And I use cranial osteopathy to just gently unwind and take the tensions and get these babies straight. And then they start to feed really well. And I've had babies in who have been told, or mothers and babies who have categorically been told that their baby cannot breastfeed. And we've had them back breastfeeding in a week or a couple of weeks maximum. And I got the testimonials from these mums, and it's really wonderful and satisfying. So you can see that baby and imagine that baby just would not be happy laying on its back or being put down. And I call these babies little frogs or little meerkats. So we've already seen the baby. That would be a little meerkat baby who's up on your shoulder, really stiff, looks like they've got a strong neck, you know, how the meerkats look up. And then this baby on the left is a little frog baby. So we haven't seen this baby, this cute little baby here. And when you lay this baby down, her legs come up like this automatically every time, and they're in a little ball, and they go up on your shoulder, and you have to jiggle them around. So they like to be moved, and they don't like to go on their back again because they find it uncomfortable because they're in this curled up ball shape. And this is a C-section baby. So the baby's inside you in a ball, and then you have a C-section, and they come out, and they don't get stretched out through the birth canal, and they come out and they're still in a little ball like this. So we've got these little frogs and little meerkat babies, and they don't like being laid down, and they can be windy and refluxy. So imagine you feeding this baby, getting all that milk in her tummy, and then her legs come up and they push all the milk back out and she throws it up, or she gets a bit of wind and her legs come up, and now that wind can't move through her bowel and through her tummy, and it can't get out, so it's trapped in there. And when it comes to wind, better out than in a baby. So now we're getting this big picture of all the different reasons that babies can be upset, colicky, and excessively crying. We've got these different birth patterns. We've got the C-section antibiotics. And then on here I've actually got about the mother's diet. So I haven't covered that today in this presentation, but I've got books on the mother's diet, the best foods to eat and not to eat, a really easy and a great way of eating that actually is proven to make your breast supply better. And two of the books were all about that. And this is how I'm helping the babies. So we use the cranial osteopathy, and here's this gorgeous, cute baby having a treatment and loving it and all relaxed and all asleep. And I tell you, this baby wasn't like this when she first came in. This is after a couple of treatments, and she's just all finished off and all happy. So I use cranial osteopathy. We use the probiotics. I mentioned a lot about that. Calm and Colic. The book goes into that a lot. The mother's diet, I always investigate. I've written 3 of the ebooks on the mother's diet. I fiddle around with the formula. Basically, we leave no stone unturned until we get babies happy. So everything I do to help babies is in the book Calm and Colic, and then the 6 other ebooks I've written. And I've done about 20 different videos about all the same topics: the breastfeeding, the poos, everything that I've gone over quickly today. Loads and loads of information for you. There's Calm and Colic, another guide how to calm your baby quickly, a reflux guide, common mistakes that mums have made with their eating, and I asked all the mums that came in, I started to ask them and record what they ate, about 40 of them, and it was amazing the mistakes that were commonly made across the board, and these deficiencies, vitamin mineral deficiencies, and then I wrote how to correct that, and we've got food plans there, and I've even written a weight loss one because mums were so commonly trying to lose weight after their baby. But you don't really want to be trying to do that, especially if you're breastfeeding. You know, you need to be nourishing yourself to nourish your baby. If you're not breastfeeding, you still need to be being careful because you're tired. You know, you're looking after this baby. You've got a lack of sleep, so you need to be eating really well. And actually, the way that I suggest is the way that really helps your breast milk supply. But also, it's great for weight loss anyway. So the weight loss would naturally be occurring, but you'd actually be eating really well. So I call that Happy Baby Project, and that's all of the books together, and you can read more about that on this page, and I hope you've learned some useful information. So thank you very much. This is Christian Bates saying goodbye.